There are many different ways to drill a pilot hole and bore a countersink ready for your screw. But do we really need to do it? And what happens if we don't? And why are there so many different ways to get it done? Is this better than this? Is this better than this? What does this even do? And is it vital? Is pricier better, or can I save some money? Like, can I just buy one that does everything, or do I need them all? Today we're answering all of these questions and more. But before we can put copious amounts of countersink bits that I've bought through their paces, including one that is considered to be best in class in search of answers for you, let me quickly tell you why it is vital to not only countersink a screw, but also to drill a pilot hole. Pilot hole first, the how and why. The why first. For years I took my impact driver and I drove a screw in as hard as I could, as deep as I could. And most of the time it was fine. Most of the time the head disappeared and the screw survived. Sure, there was a little damage, but the head was in there. But now I look back, I was building mainly with soft, easygoing pine. When you start building with harder woods and plywood, more issues start to arise. So what exactly is happening? Without a pilot hole, the screw needs to push the wood fibres apart as it goes deeper. And that squeezes them, and they then tend to push back, which causes friction. The pilot hole removes enough of those fibres, reducing the friction and the torque on the screw, and therefore reducing the risk of stripping or snapping. You know, that moment where the screw stops, but the driver doesn't. The pilot hole also gives you a lot more directional control. Rather than just squeezing the trigger and spinning the screw until it eventually bites, the pilot hole reduces a lot of errors. But the main reason for the pilot hole, in my opinion, is to reduce the risk of splitting. You see, without a pilot hole, that displaced wood from the screw going in still has nowhere to go. So not only does it push on the screw itself, it also pushes on the neighbouring fibres around it. When screwing into hardwood, or at the edge of any wood, and especially into the end grain of plywood, this can and will lead to splitting. Take away the displacement and take away the risk of splitting. It does take longer, but to quote Joseph at 5 Duck Studios' golden rule, if you don't have time to do it right, what makes you think you've got the time to do it twice? Well played, Joseph. So do take the time to drill a pilot hole, or use one of the combination bits that I'm going to show you shortly. And there's only really one exception to the pilot hole rule that I can think of, and that's building with construction lumber, where aesthetics aren't really a problem and the wood's soft. So that's the why. Now the how. The pilot drill bit you use needs to be the same diameter or a little under the diameter of the shank of the screw. So that's everything but the thread of the screw itself. That way the thread can bite into the wall of the pilot hole. Now the reasons to bore a countersink are pretty obvious. First and foremost, to hide the screw heads. Countersinking creates a cone recess that the screw head can actually sit in, placing it level or below the wood surface, which is critical for that nice aesthetic, and necessary when you want to hide the screw entirely by covering it with wood filler or a dowel. And I know, in some woods you can just force it. But when you do that generally, the wood surface around the screw head itself looks terrible, and this can show up even if you're filling it. So now you're sold on the idea of countersinking and pilot drilling, let's look at the options. And here there are three main types of countersink option. Option 1, the juicer. This is a classic countersink bit, and it's a two-stage option. First, you bore the countersink, then you drill the pilot hole. Option 2 is the blend. This is a one-step solution that combines the pilot drill and the countersink in one bit, a combination bit if you like. And then there's option 3, the halo bit, a depth stop countersink bit with a stop collar, or halo as I see it, consistent depth and all-round speed. So these are our three types, but which one's best and why should you buy it? Is there truly a one-size-fits-all? And I know some of these are going to fall by the wayside as we test them, but here are the categories that I'm judging them on: speed, quality of work, adjustability, cost, and build quality. So let's dive straight in. Back to number 1, the juicer. As I said before, this is a two-stage process. The countersink bit is used to bore a cone to hide the screw head, and then you can drill your pilot hole afterwards. There is nothing to stop you drilling the cone too deep or too shallow. Well, nothing but you. And there is a practical issue to consider. You will either be swapping the bits a lot for each hole, or each set of holes you drill, or you're going to need more drills than an underperforming marching band. One for the pilot, one for the countersink, and don't forget one to drive the screw in afterwards. Now back to those criteria quickly, and we don't get far down them because speed, straight off the bat, considering those changes, is a fail. though the quality of finish is good and the cost is acceptable. Because to be honest, you probably already have the drill bits, and a set of these juicer bits will cost you around £5. But the method as a whole has to be taken out of the competition based just on speed. However, if you are wed to it, instead of getting a set of those juicer bits, let me suggest getting a set of these de-burring bits. It's a little bit pricier at £20 per set, and you have to switch around the order of operations, so you drill your pilot hole first, then do your countersink, but the quality of finish is far superior. But as it's a fail on speed, let's move on to option 2, the blend. Someone either didn't have 3 drills to use or got sick of changing the bits out, so they invented this, the combination bit. These all have a drill bit located in a hex shank, held in place with a hex key grub screw. The countersink cutter is located at the base of the drill bit, so once you've drilled your pilot hole, you follow through and the countersink cone is also cut. First thing to note here, there is no depth control on the countersink, but there is for the pilot hole's depth. On the standard type, you can loosen the grub screw and lower the depth of the drill itself. Simple, right? Well, not quite. I found over the years of testing these that they're not all built equally. And before we can start the scoring, we need to separate the good from the, well, less good. You see these, where you can't adjust the drill length itself, and you have to adjust the collar up and down, these I don't like. For a couple of reasons. One, the shaft is tapered. Clamping the sleeve further up the shaft not only makes it unstable, but it also can damage the drill itself. And 2, from a set of 10, I got 10 identical diameters, identical drills. You don't need 10 the same. So these are out. There is also this type, not to be mistaken online, these drill for a plug. So instead of a cone-shaped countersink for the head of the screw, they create a wider hole at the top of the pilot hole so you can then plug it with a dowel. They're fine, but they're not what we're looking for in this experiment. And we have to be strict, so they're out. This just leaves us with this type of bit. So to test the blends themselves, I've got these 3 options. This golden set, named because the drill bits are gold. And this individual bit bought from Trent. And I'm going to put these through the test process along with the next category of bits, the halo bits. And before we do that, I think that I've just found a winner in a different area completely. It's a bit embarrassing to say it, but this is my 3D printer setup in my office. But I think this week's sponsor is going to turn an office loser into an office winner. And that's because FlexiSpot have a large range of standing desks perfect for what I need. The construction was made simple by a very clear set of instructions and took around half an hour. It's very well priced compared to its competitors, and there's a wide range of colour and countertop material combinations too. I've opted for one of their 4-leg models due to the increased stability and loading capacity. Where a 2-leg model can hold around 90 to 110 kilograms, the 4-leg model can hold at least 200 kilograms. And this is the highest 4-leg standing desk you can buy, which means not only can I raise it up to make video calls, but, should I wish, I can even change light bulbs. And with everything controlled by one keypad with presets and parental controls, it's an incredible addition to any workspace. But what really impresses me the most is the whisper quiet motor and the smooth action you get when raising and lowering the desk. I'll leave a link with the discount code on the screen and in the description so you can check out FlexiSpot for yourselves. Now, back to the test. But before we start the test, what are halo bits? I'm glad you asked. Option 3, the halo bit. And honestly, this is where I spent the most money. So first of all, let's whiz through the anatomy. These are basically countersink combination bits, but with a halo. They have the same adjustability for drill depth as the blends, but this halo acts as a depth stop once it hits the wood, meaning you can't drill any deeper. It's also designed to stop spinning when it contacts the wood so as not to mark the surface of your work. I will show you how each one that I bought is slightly different in build and design just before we test them. Their main attraction though is repeatability, consistency and speed of use. So let's talk tests. The first test is the 100-hole challenge. It's exactly how it sounds. Each bit is used to drill 100 holes back to back to back. No care taken for quality of cut. Just 100 holes drilled in this block of ply. This is basically to test overall build quality and feel. Is there any dulling of the drill? Do they fail or deteriorate along the test? And after this test, any that pass will move on to the 3-step quality test. 5 holes drilled as best I can with the most care I've got into hardwood, softwood, and very, very cheap ply. I've chosen cheap ply because it is the thinnest veneer possible on the top surface. I mean, you could delaminate it with a sneeze. So it will show any flaws in the cut quality. These results put together with price and packaging will eventually lead us to a potential winner. So let's do the standard combination or blend bits first, golden and trend. With the golden, I'll be honest, this start was a little bit concerning. I was worried, but fortunately, the issue was not the grub screw failing. The issue in fact was this hex key that came with it being made out of ridiculously soft metal just failing. So I got a decent hex key, fixed the drill in tight, and the golden set brushed themselves off and aced the remaining 99 holes, as did the individual trend bit. So let's take a quick look at what you get for the price. Golden first. For £19.99, you get a package deal, 5 bits, 5 sizes and 5 spare drills, and a soft hex key. And the trend individual bit is £6.60. But for better or worse, no hex key. So we've established that the build is good, but what about cut quality? Golden first, and it aced it. Again. A lovely finish all round in the hardwood, the softwood and the ply. Trend was up next and followed the example set. It is worth noting that the trend bit has a slightly wider chamfer than the others. And you might be wondering why I'm even bothering to test these bits at all. Surely the halo bits are the same, but better. After all, you get the additional depth stop. Or maybe, but the combination bits can actually do one job that the halo bits can't. And that's important, and we'll get back to that soon. But for now, we're going to put the combination bits to one side, and we're going to go straight through with the test on the halo bits. Let's start with the reigning champion, the bit to beat. This is the Amana bit, prized possession of YouTube woodworkers everywhere. It's solid, robust, and with an all-metal design will probably last beyond my woodworking career. I can find no flaws with the build quality, and as for speed, repeatability and consistency, well, it's got them all. As you can see, it sails through the 100-hole challenge. But the price, at £45, it is the priciest around, and the cost could end up rising. I'll get to that. Here's what you get first. Simple packaging, containing the bit and a double-ended hex key. I mentioned great design, easy to access screws, and they genuinely feel stronger than the standard grub screws you get elsewhere. An incredibly smooth action on the depth stop and the adjustment of the drill depth. The cut quality on all woods was absolutely impeccable. And I have to say, I had this bit bought well before this test, so it's already had quite a lot of use and it still cuts that well. But for the price, you only get one diameter of drill bit. So if you want any other sizes, you're going to be paying around £45 again and again and again for each different size. And that's going to add up fast. But the drill depth itself is relatively shallow. And this means that one style of job is out of the question entirely. But let's shelve that, because now the Amana bit is the benchmark for all other bits to be tested against. So here's the first contender for the crown. This bit from Wolfcraft I bought for £9.28. It's smaller, with all the same features as the Amana, but the depth stop is made from plastic, which is a possible concern. And it has the same issue of one diameter of drill to do all jobs. You have 2 grub screws, one to adjust the amount of drill bit exposed, and the other to adjust the halo for depth of countersink, and both are easily accessible. So nowhere near as sturdy as the Amana, but a quarter of the price. As you may expect, it aced the 100-hole test. I mean aced. It didn't miss a beat, no dulling and no damage. Quality tests were flawless even on the cheap ply. This is genuinely a real contender right now. Next up, we've got the Magic Box. Yes, you heard me right. They're called Magic Box, and at £17.99 we've got the first of our sets. And honestly, there is nothing magic about this box, nothing. The design is along the Amana lines, but you get 5 for half the price of one Amana bit. The reason for 5, each one has a different diameter of drill bit. But only the drill and the shank are metal, the outer casing is all made of plastic. But, and this is unique to the Magic Box set, the countersink depth is adjusted by loosening this plastic screw, adjusting the depth and then tightening it. So no need for a hex key to do that. And if you think it looks cheap, you'd be right. Where you do need a hex key is to adjust the drill depth. And the magic in the box, if you like, is because they give you 5 identical ones. But how did the test go? Well, honestly, better than expected. The 100-hole test was a breeze. No marking from the halo and easy to get repeatable results. You can ignore most of the tear out at this stage because the board honestly is getting turned into Swiss cheese. What I didn't notice at the time was that the 100-hole test did have a sad cost to the bit. It seems that after that test, the 2 screws that you actually adjust to move the countersink, both being plastic, have now fused together. I honestly can now no longer adjust the depth. And I didn't know that this plastic halo just popped off. I mean, I'm sure that's fine, right? And sadly, this was the only halo bit to show any lack of quality in the quality tests. So I don't hold out hope for it overall. This next set is along the same lines as the Magic Box. It's the same design as the Amana with 4 bits to cover the 4 sizes. Each one has its own box, and yes, you guessed it, its own hex key. And yes, they are the soft variety of key. At $17.99, I like that these are an all metal design, but the countersink element is a separate unit from the drill part, so adjusting it can get clunky. But it is doable, and the drill depth, as all the others, is adjustable. Anyway, it's test time. And old Blue here did not do well on the 100-hole test challenge. Not well at all. Quality of countersink cut and repeatability are okay, but what's with the blue ring? Why bother painting it fancy blue if it's only going to make it worse? And well, it didn't quite make it. The bit gave out 3/4 of the way through. Not great. And I'm sad to say it will not be allowed into the quality test as it didn't get past the 100-hole challenge. Not to mention the blue rings. They were still present right at the end, which I can't get past. Last but not least, the no brand, cool looking metal set. There is technically a brand name, and I'll find it ready for the end, I promise. I like this feature. This part of the halo that comes in contact with the wood actually has a rubber strip to protect the wood surface. So that not only softens the contact, but it also grips to stop the halo from spinning. I like that a lot. I confess this was my high hope to beat the Amana from the get-go. Price? $17.99 again, which at this point seems weirdly consistent. You get all the features like the others, but instead of multiple units, you get one with multiple inserts. I like that. You can either loosen the grub screw to adjust the halo, and in doing so expose the screw to adjust the pilot drill depth, or remove the halo completely to swap out the drill section. I also like that. The halo adjust feels slick and has depth markings too, if you can actually read them. And you can drill deeper than the Amana can. I really want this to be good. I have to be honest, it looks cool and it feels solid. But let's test it. In the 100-hole test, it performed much like the Wolfcraft. Fast and easy, no loss of performance along the way. If I'm honest, it was a touch slower to cut the countersink than the Wolfcraft, but it was only marginal. The quality test was impeccable, much like the Wolfcraft as well, and much like the combination bits. Before we get to the conclusion, I'd be remiss to not point out that some of these cut a wider chamfer than others. So what screw types you typically use and their relative head diameters should be considered before purchasing any bit. And at the end of all of this, the only bits that lost any quality over the quality tests were the combination bits and the magic, not magic box. And as the magic box failed by being all plastic and fused, they're out. But the combination bits, the blends, overall aren't, because they did just enough to survive, and they have another strength that I meant to tell you about. And that strength is the depth of the pilot hole that they can drill. We mentioned end grain of plywood splitting when you drill into it without a pilot. And I tend to drill into end grain ply quite a lot, especially when I'm making cabinets out of 3/4 inch plywood. You see, when the plywood comes to a corner, you tend to drill through the 3/4 inch face of one into the end grain of another. Now, a few of these halo bits, such as the Amana, never get deep enough to leave a decent pilot hole in the end grain. And so when using longer screws, splitting can still occur. And that's not an issue with the combination bits, and that's big. So a halo bit with more drilling depth is a big plus. We may have found the possibility that we get one bit that can do all jobs, and that's the Wolfcraft and the Estviig. That's the name. I found the brand name. So let's see if we can find a final conclusion. We already know that option 1 is too slow. Option 2 on its own is not consistent enough depth-wise. Option 3 is perfect for consistency but lacks drill depth. And there are some poor sets out there. Taking all of this into account and cancelling out the sets along the way, these are the two we've got representing the blend, the combination bits. And Amana, Estviig and Wolfcraft representing the halo bits. And I never thought I'd say this, but here it is. If you have an unlimited budget, go ahead and buy all the different sizes of Amana bits there are out there and have at it. They are by far the best, strongest build out of the lot, and they'll last you a long, long time. Counter the depth drilling bit by buying a set of these relatively inexpensive golden bits, and you've got all your bases covered, albeit you're £250-ish lighter. If you don't have the budget for all of those bits, here's my opinion. For a second, forget that these two can drill deep enough to do every job. I firmly believe in buying a tool for its specialist purpose. So with that in mind, I'd recommend buying a halo bit for the repeatable jobs and a blend bit for when you need that deeper pilot hole. And personally, where that job's concerned, I can't get by with just one bit. I use different size screws for different jobs. So if you're like me, you have to buy the set. And back onto the halo choice, if you can't justify Amana money, then the Wolfcraft and the Estviig are both very, very good. But out of the two, it's the Estviig that I would choose. With the only separating factor being that yes, it's more expensive, however, you get all of these different drill sizes to boot. And very quickly, as if that wasn't enough, the Estviig is the only one out the set that actually has a little flat side to their drill bits. So when you put it in, the grub screw has a flat surface to push against. So where you saw all the drill bits coming out of things like the Golden when it wasn't completely tightened up, that's going to stop that, because even if it's not 100% locked in, it's still going to get purchase off that grub screw. I really like that. So that's my choice. Will they last forever? Probably not. But having the all metal option over one with plastic gives you a better chance in my opinion. And having these two together is still cheaper than one Amana bit. I really hope you enjoyed the tests, and more so, I hope they were helpful. I'll pop all the links down to every single tool you've seen today in the description in case you want to check them out for yourself. And the conversation, as always, is going to continue on Patreon. There's a link to that down below as well. But for now, if you pop to Patreon or click on the next video, I'll see you over there. Thanks a lot.